Hello and welcome to the Shift Gear podcast. There's no different language today, and I'm also not wearing a hat. You might notice things are a little different today. Of course, I do have a new hat here in case I need to wear one, but I got to coach like 180 soccer players tonight, so I don't want to have hat hair this evening. And the reason why everything's different is we're recording during the day. You see the sun? See, I have like that sun up there too, the animated little sun up there. So we're recording during the day because me and Ciaran just we got lazy last night, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I was in the middle of cooking, and then we didn't want to record later.
Yeah, it's one of those like, yo, we'll record later, bro, and then later just never came. So
Exactly.
here we are. So yeah, this is the week before Baltimore. I hope you are all settled on a deck or settled within 3 decks, I would say at the very most.
Yep.
But we've a curveball to throw at you today. We've done some thinking about what we think is different about this metagame and what's going on here, and we both think that aggressive decks are maybe the meta right now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they're all the rage. I think Worlds kind of shifted us more to this aggressive format with the what's it called, Gardevoir flopping. I guess Charizard flopped, and it just seems like online tournaments the hype has been. We've been seeing Ancient Box, we've been seeing Roaring Moon, we've been seeing Miraidon, Raging Bolt. So I think we wanted to focus today on which is the best aggressive deck, how you can be best prepared for the onslaught of aggro that is probably going to be at Baltimore.
Yeah, and the way this came up, actually, the way I came into this idea was one of the guys I coach. He asked me, he's like, "What deck do you think Lamar Jackson would play?" And I was thinking, I was like, "Yo, what deck would Lamar Jackson play?" And I was like, "Yo, something definitely like super
Definitely aggro. He's
aggressive."
quick.
Yeah, and I don't know. This came up on Thursday Night Football, and like, shout out football, bro. Like, I feel like we're like in form right now, man. This whole Sunday, there was football on the whole day. We played Pokemon and watched football all day. Like, it doesn't get better than that, man.
Yep. Yeah, Neil's at my apartment. We watched my landlord install my new dishwasher, which still isn't fully installed.
Pretty lit.
That's why
Yeah.
there's a massive box behind me and tools.
He was installing the hell out of that dishwasher, dude. And then there's an error code. It was guys, it was so lively, man. Like being 26, it's so fun. You like install dishwashers and stuff, and you get a kick out of it. Don't grow up, man. It sucks. So what we'll do today, yeah. So Merry Christmas or whatever you call the NFL season, because it really does feel that way. But what we're going to be doing today is going through the 3 decks that we think are the best aggro decks, comparing them to each other, why you should play one over the other, depending on what you expect in your metagame. Also sharing the list that we've kind of been working on in passing, kind of going about it like that, and we'll compare them all together. I was calling them the Three Musketeers. I don't know if there's a better name for these 3 very aggressive decks, but I think, yeah, there's definitely 3 of them. I think everyone can kind of agree on that.
Yeah. I don't know.
We'll
Musketeers are noble, Aneil. I don't know if the aggro decks, I'd call them noble decks.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because neither of us like aggro decks for the most part. But we're here like preaching them like crazy, and this actually seems like such meta manipulation too. If you're on the outside, you're like, look at these 2 idiots manipulate the meta. They're probably gonna play Charizard. I'm gonna tell you right now. I don't think either of us are playing Charizard.
I'm not playing Charizard, even if it's objectively good.
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be playing a deck that loses to all 3 of these. So
to all 3, you can play Regidrago.
Probably. I mean, I don't know. Like, I just can't think of anything besides Charizard that doesn't lose to all 3 of these at this point. Maybe Gardevoir.
Yeah, I guess.
That's still really.
I don't know. This whole format, no matter what deck you pick, there's a couple decks where you're just like, all right, let's not hit those.
Yeah, I was losing my mind last night testing Lost Tina. I was like, wow, I've really lost it. Like, my brain is somewhere else right now.
Bro, every time I play a deck in this format, I'm like, or I do a testing session with decks, I'm like, I'm more confused with what to play than when I started. I'm like, I don't want to play any of these decks.
This truly is like the most, I don't know, at least for me, the most unenjoyable format we've had in a little while.
Yeah, I think it's just tough if you haven't like found it. Like, it just doesn't feel like a deck has spoken to me where I'm like, this is my deck. So yeah. I had Chien-Pao for a while. I had Gardevoir, Lugia for a while. I haven't had one.
Yeah, so. It's not it right now. If you're new here, by the way, this is what we do every week. We kind of just get off topic and talk about junk half the time, so we apologize. I knew we made it because I was going through this week, and I know I told you about it, Ciaran, but there's like internet troll mans kind of coming for us now. It's kind of funny. Those like no profile picture mans just like commenting absolute craziness on the post. So I was like, it's either we made it or we've entered like an algorithm of YouTube I don't want to be in anymore. But I saw like random negativity this week, and I was like, guys, like we're just 2 dudes with a podcast. We're not here for anything too serious, so please don't come for our heads. Anyways, let's jump right into this. We'll start with the Roaring Moon. This is the one that I actually personally think is the best, but I know that's completely up for debate. So let's go through some pros and cons. Our list will be on the screen right here. You'll be able to see it. We'll kind of go through the deck's matchups briefly and then kind of give you an idea of why maybe you should or should not play this. So, Ciaran, why don't you start with a few pros? I'll hit with a few cons, and we'll go from there.
So I think the pros, I think Roaring Moon is the most consistent of the three aggro decks in my opinion. It's like the easiest in my like to pull off attacks. Like you have Peck-Runt, so you don't need to like hit like Switch Cart. Like you can just like Nest Ball or Ultra Ball for it. The way the deck's constructed is like it's playing like double Squawk. You're playing all the trekking shoes. You have like 4 Pokestop. So just from my testing, it gets the turn 1 attack the most often. So that's what's nicest about Roaring Moon. Frenzied Gouging is also awesome. Like you literally just blow anything up. Pretty much no deck is playing Mist Energy besides Lugia. Maybe some Snorlaxes, but you also auto-win that, which is very nice. Then you have like the Baby Moon as your little 1 prize guy. So you have a 1 prize attacker. The other thing I like is it has Dark Patch, so it's like guaranteed item-based acceleration. Like Miraidon kind of has that with Generator. Like it's not guaranteed, but it's pretty high odds to hit. So yeah, to me, just the main reason to play Roaring Moon is it's the most consistent of probably any deck in the format. If I had to say.
Yeah. And so one pro I'd like to add in there as well is that you don't really have a damage cap, so that's pretty important too. There's a lot of decks that, like Miraidon, for example, we're going to touch on it. Like one of the big cons for Miraidon is that you can't really hit above 220 or 230 that frequently unless you're playing Raichu. So I like the fact you don't have a damage cap. You can kind of go through everything. I'll start with some of the cons. So some of the issues with Roaring Moon. So obviously, you're putting 200 on yourself whenever going through anything bigger than 220. So that is an issue. I've found actually, which is interesting. So with Peck-Runt as well, when you're using it to switch into your active and you're putting 200 on yourself, suddenly you're on a 2-turn timer. So you have to switch back out at some point. Get rid of that poison. You're no longer able to poison yourself past that. You will notice that this list does have a couple charms. So trying to play around that a little bit. But that's the main issue with the deck, I think. You are the most consistent overall. You do pretty well into the other aggressive decks as well. I think Raging Bolt kind of poses a bit of an issue just because of the amount of HP it has. But for the most part, like these matchups in between the 3 Musketeers, we'll say, like, are all pretty even, dare I say it. It feels like all around you're able to all one-shot each other. Like Miraidon with the use of Zapdos can one-shot Moon. Obviously they have trouble into Raging Bolt, but they play Vitality Band now too, so they can reach that number. Bolt has the most amount of health, so it obviously survives a little bit more. But they all feel like they kind of interact really interestingly with each other. But this one has the ability as well to swing in that 1 prize with Roaring Moon, the baby. So as much as you're doing 200 to yourself all the time, you do have the option of not doing that. So against like Drago, like if you put 200 on yourself, it can be a bit of an issue.
No, you
You're just a
lose if you
boss
do
on a squawk away.
that.
Yeah, exactly. You're just a boss on a squawk away from having a 4 prize turn, so you want to avoid that. But other than that, like the deck feels pretty good overall.
I mean, the problem with the deck for me is like it's just very linear. Like it's extremely linear. There's not much options to do things. And I do think its Regidrago matchup is a little suspect. Like when I was testing, I'm like, if Regidrago literally just says Ciaran twice, Roaring Moon can't fix it. So I actually added Bravery Charm to Roaring Moon to try and fix this. So I'm like, okay, well, if they go for the Ciaran play and you put down 1 Bravery Charm, you just win, assuming they don't play Jamming Tower. But I have seen a lot of Regidragos adding Jamming Tower lately, so it might not work as well. The other thing I thought about is like you said, like Miraidon is like kind of close because they play Zapdos. So I'm like, well, if you Bravery Charm, then they have to Gust every turn as well. That was kind of like my fix, but yeah, it's just like I said, it's like linear. You do need to Gust almost every single turn, and the deck does play 4 Catcher and Prime and all that. And I also added a bundle instead of the 4th Catcher, just because I'm like, you know what, a lot of decks just put up a 1 prize or turn 1. I'd rather just have item card search, Gust. So yeah, to me that's just the downside. It's just very linear. Like you got to go on that 2-2-2 map, and like it's very hard to stray away from that.
Yeah, well, for me personally, like I'm looking at Zard for this tournament to be public enemy number 1. So with that in mind, I actually think this may be my choice. Like if I were to play an aggressive deck here, like this would probably be the one I would gravitate to. Just because they don't play Heat Tackle anymore. They have to put 2 energies on a Charmander to KO your Moon, and that's before Bravery Charm. So a lot of the time you end up in this like 2 prize war, and Zard is typically pretty slow. So you have an extra turn of kind of taking that advantage and taking the lead there. So I actually really like the matchup in Zard. I know that isn't a popular thing in the past. Like a lot of people didn't really like it too much, but I think it's good. Deck's consistent. It does what it needs to do. Like Ciaran said, it is quite linear, but you have a few avenues. You can swing in a 1 prizer here and there. Maybe you attack with Peck-Runt. Like There are other things you can do.
Yeah.
Just most of the time, you will not do them.
The problem I have with Zard is if you frenzied gouging and your opponent has a Dust Skull, they can actually just go Dust Ops, knock out
Yep.
Roaring Moon, then win. See, that's another
Bravery
annoying
Charm,
thing.
baby.
That's again, that's why another match where I'm like, oh, Bravery Charm might help solve this. The
Mm-hmm.
other actually thing I don't like about Baby Roaring Moon is you play almost no ancient cards. Like you only play your moons, your Sada, and your vessels. But I actually have trouble getting to enough ancient cards in the discard sometimes to use it. So
It's really good to kill Mew.
it is.
The
It's
main
really good.
application
So
I
if you're
found.
playing against, if you play Drago, for example, against Roaring Moon, don't bench Mew unless you like absolutely have to. Otherwise, they're just gonna knock it out with the Baby Moon. Or if you play against Miraidon or something as well, same idea.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So, well, so the counterplay to all this. So we're introducing you to all these aggressive decks, but there is obviously counterplay to this, which we will touch on at the end. Like cards that you can maybe include in your Charizard list or your Drago list, and most of them are probably going to rhyme with Radiant Barzard. But I mean, like, there are good cards out there that can help you against these matchups. So keep that in mind as well. If you're more interested in how to counter these, maybe skip to the end. So second one we'll go over here. We'll go over Miraidon. This list is very similar to the list that did well at Worlds with Jesse Parker, and that's because that list feels basically perfect. The only change here is one less Force Stone, one more Bravery Charm. Just again, kind of sign of the times. Getting some more health, it seems pretty helpful here. Maybe Ciaran, I'll take the pros this time. You take the cons.
Sure.
All right, cool. Pros of Miraidon. You are aggressive. You are like all the other decks on this list. You're very aggressive. You have the ability of using Iron Hands, which I think is a huge pro here, especially against stuff like Roaring Moon that are going to damage themselves. You're able to take 2-3 prize KOs to just kind of win the game. I do recognize it is a lot harder to stream Iron Hands now that Flaffy is gone, but you do have the ability to always hypothetically be able to Iron Hands twice. So that's a big one. You play double Squawk in here. You play Ursaluna as well, which is really interesting into these matchups because Ursaluna is a great card to swing at the end. It's kind of like your own Radiant Charizard, but you have a lot more health, and it's actually really difficult for some of these decks to kind of take out. And I think that was the first thing I noticed when I played it. I was like, why does this thing have so much health? Like, it's crazy, and it doesn't even one-shot itself. So I think it's super interesting, super cool card, especially in these Three Musketeer matchups against each other. You have access to Generator, which is a hit or miss card. I'm sure Ciaran will touch on that in a second, how it's more of a con than a pro a lot of the times. But Miraidon itself also sets up its own board, so you don't have to worry about playing a lot of Nest Balls or Ultra Balls or whatever. Like, you have 4 of each, but you don't necessarily need them as long as you get a Miraidon down. So Miraidon overall, I think it feels really good. You are very reliant on Generators, which I think is my biggest gripe with the deck. But I think overall, it's pretty solid.
Yeah. So I think Miraidon as a deck of the aggro decks, it has the most options. Like it has Iron Hands, it has, like you said, Blood Moon, all this stuff. It's also the weakest when it comes to pure damage output, and it's the most inconsistent of the aggro decks. So you're trading that consistency and raw power just for that flexibility. And honestly, maybe it's just because I'm not Jesse Parker, but I just found Miraidon every time I tried, I'm like, it just like feels so mediocre. Like, I don't know, like for me, like the cons I would say is like I think its Regidrago matchup is like the closest of all the aggro decks. I actually don't think it's like that good into Regidrago. Mainly because your damage cap is so low. Like you can't one-shot a V-Star. So I find most of my games, I'm like, okay, like every single turn I need to Generator and boss, Generator, boss every turn. And it's not like a trivial thing to do. Especially since like your acceleration is like you're purely relying on like an item card that is random. Like sometimes I'm like, yeah, I really need to hit 2 Lightning Zeros, so I'm gonna lose. Which like you play 18 or 16, sorry, so it's like you have a pretty good chance of hitting. But I think the odds of hitting 2 is like around, it's probably, as the game goes on, it gets probably lower than 50%. So like my con for this deck is it's the highest maintenance deck out of all of them. It's like you have to, every single turn you're going like a Generator, boss. So it's like you don't really have time to like weave in those like Arvins for like Prime Catcher, or like even just Arvin to grab a tool sometimes. I will say one thing I do like about it is that I think it has the best turn 1 of all the decks because you play the Forest Sealstone. Like I find it's really easy to Prime Catcher with this deck compared to all the other ones. But yeah, as the game goes on, I find this is the hardest one to close out games with. Like the Blood Moon is literally there because you're like, at the end of the game, it's so hard for me to hit Generator plus boss at the end.
I actually really don't know why more decks don't play Blood Moon. I think the card is fantastic.
Well, it's like just most decks just don't need it, right? Like
I guess it just is such a good card. Like I don't know, for its power level, it feels underplayed to me, and it always kind of will. Until
well, if you just like go down the list though, like Drago doesn't really need it because they have Charizard. Like Charizard itself doesn't need it because Charizard just they have Rad Start as well. I guess
Mhm.
Gardevoir just has all their big attackers. All the aggro decks like
Yeah.
Moon and I guess even Raging Bull, like they're probably already set up. So I agree though, the card is just like insane on its own. But I guess there's just not that many decks that like need that late game little boost for a lot of
Yeah.
energy.
So one thing I wanted to point out as well with this list that you'll notice is that there's no vitality band. And that is sort of by design in the sense that like Raging Bolt is already playing Bravery Charms now. For the most part, I shouldn't say that they all are, but it feels like they're either playing Charm or the capsule. Sorry. So there's a lot of like HP boosting going on, and the Zapdos plus Vitband thing is a little bit difficult to pull off sometimes. So um, we've kind of gone away from that route. We put Bravery Charms on ourselves instead, which pushes Raging Bolt to need 5. No, they still need 4 energy actually to KO us. So it's not a big deal in that matchup, I guess. But the Bravery Charms overall just kind of felt better. Although there is an argument to play Vitality Band if you're expecting a lot of Raging Bolt. It is a good card to kind of push you into that 240 range and make your life a lot easier, so you can chain together those turns without having to use boss every turn, which does feel bad, and it does feel like I'm glad you brought that up. It does feel like that's one of the issues with the deck is your reliance on boss is really really high.
Yeah, because the other ones play Raging Bull. I mean, they play Pokemon Catchers. Like obviously it's a flip, but
Hmm.
it's like you have the option just like Sawda Catcher, all that, which is nice.
You do a bundle, you do a bundle
Yeah, but
here,
like any
but
good
people can play
player
around
will
it too.
play
So
around bundle, right? So
yeah,
to me, bundle strongest on turn one because it's very hard for people to get like one prizer in the active, one prizer on bench, and then put like 2 of whatever their guy they're trying to set up is. Um,
hmm
I do like Bravey Charm too because I think most people who play Regidrago like they understand how to use Kyurem now. So it's like if you don't play Bravey Charm, they're just gonna Kyurem like your board twice and you're gonna lose. You have
hmm
Switch Cart too, so you can kind of like heal, but yeah, without these HP modifiers, you're gonna lose to skilled Drago players, in my opinion.
yeah,
You
I
honestly
agree.
still might lose to skilled Drago players. I mean, like in that show match, Jesse and Ian. Ian took down Jesse, I think 3-1. So
Honestly, man, the matchup feels as a Drago player, the matchup feels really good. I think
I
it's
think it feels
fine.
fine. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
I
know if
think
I
it
would
feels
say it's
fine.
favored. Like I kind of want to say that, but like I don't know if I can say that definitively because the data points the other way. But
I think it is clearly 50-50.
yeah, I
Like
just feel like
it
if
just
Drago
feels
stabilizes, like I
good.
think they're gonna win. Like
Yeah. The moment you say I evolved to Regidrago V Star and your opponent misses a turn of boss, it's just like, all right, cool.
I think
Game's
it's so
over.
hard for Miraidon to like every turn just like keep hitting boss because like you're just gonna like Giratina like knock out their Miraidon they attacked with. It's like all right, well, attack again, uh,
Yeah.
with boss. So, yeah, it's a close
So
matchup.
overall, like I would say in a nutshell, this deck is probably, at least for me, in my opinion, I'm speaking on behalf of both of us, this is the weakest one of the three, in my opinion. I think it's still very good. I think it has a lot of pop-off potential. If you have a good day, I think you do the best with this deck out of all the three.
Yeah.
If you're hitting your gens. But
Well,
there's also a lot of sorry, you're
no,
saying
no,
something?
finish your thought. Finish your thought.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, like it feels overall like Zard is a problem. Regidrago is not super favorable. Even your matchups into like Bolt on this list is not super favorable. So overall, I think you need a lot more to go your way. I do think the ceiling is really high. And I say that I take that with a grain of salt because like Jesse Parker is amazing at playing this deck, obviously, and I don't think the average player can even get close to what he did. But your ceiling is pretty high if you're hitting your generators, but you need a lot of luck on your side, and there's going to be a lot of different factors to this. You need Tom to help you out a little bit. You need some good matchups. So I think you're the most reliant here on a little bit of fortune.
Yeah, I guess the one thing we didn't like touch on a lot is just like how important Iron Hand. Like the reason this you would play this deck, I think, is mainly just because Iron Hands. Because like
Yeah.
against a lot of decks, it's like you just get destroyed by one prize attackers. Just having the option to like hands is like actually like what makes this deck a lot better. But what in a
Which is also
meta,
contingent on luck, right? Like you need the
yeah,
generators to hit.
but in a meta like this one, where it's like we're heading towards a meta where there's a lot more like aggressive decks or like 2 prize focused decks, like hands loses a lot of value, right? Like it's not really that good against Moon. It's not that good against Bolt. It's not that good against Regidrago. That's a huge chunk of the meta where it's not getting that value. I think. So I just think the
It's
meta
actually
is
kind
actually
of
shifting
funny.
away.
I wonder if there's a line. I haven't played this matchup enough, but I wonder if there's a line if you go hands on Squawk against Moon that they almost have to return KO you with a gouge.
Uh, Not really. They would just bring out something else in Calamity Storm now.
I guess, yeah, but then eventually, like, they have to kind of get through it now.
Yeah, they can just take their last prize on the hands. You don't need to.
Yeah, I suppose you can hit. Well, then you can hit it for 220 with Miraidon and
You
say,
can
"Hey,
also
do
just
something about
honestly
it."
frenzied gouging it and be like, "Okay, can you set up another Iron Hands?" Probably yes, but like if you have to, you could do that. Probably.
I don't know. I was just thinking out loud. Like, I think that actually could be a line.
Yeah,
I haven't played this matchup enough, but
you
seems
played
okay. So
Bellatori.
overall, I think the TLDR, like, this is a good deck.
Yeah.
They're all good decks on this list. But I think, unless, is there anything else you want to cover about Miraidon, or should we move on to
No,
Bolt?
let me move on to Bolt.
Cool. Okay. And we'll circle back at the end and give you like the entire kind of summary of what we think overall. But I think right now, this one that we're about to touch on is pretty good. So we have Raging Bolt. Everyone's familiar with Raging Bolt. This list specifically is Ciaran's list. I actually don't know a whole lot about this. I've barely looked at it before the video. But it looks pretty status quo.
Yeah, it's literally just consistent. To me, I think Raging Bolt's the best of the three aggro decks. Reason being is I think it has the best Charizard matchup of all three. Also, I think its Regidrago matchup is probably the best actually of all three as well. So to me, the way I build this deck is I literally just build it for consistency. Like I know a lot of people are adding like the charms, we've added in some of the other decks, but for this deck specifically, I think you do need to run the Ultra Balls, for example, just to have more discard, get going turn one more. Because for me, this deck is literally like get ahead, stay ahead. Like I don't really care that much about my opponent, like about me surviving hits. Like if I fall behind, I'm gonna lose. So the reason I like Raging Bolt a lot is it's the only of the three aggro decks that gets to use Ogremon, sorry.
Yes, please correct yourself.
So like like into Charizard now, like they're weak to grass. Like you can one shot them. Into like even against Roaring Moon if you have to, like you can just start trading with the Ogrepons as well. Ogremon, you don't have to keep using Sada every turn, which is nice. And then I just like that 240 is actually a really nice health number. Like you mentioned against Miraidon, for example, like they actually can't one-shot you unless they start playing Vitality Band. Roaring Moon, like they also have to Frenzy Gouging you. They can't. They actually have no modifier unless they play Binding Mochi, which I don't think they will. It's also against Regidrago. Like it's actually very difficult for them to do the Ciaran play on you, just because you're not going to bench. If you play smartly, you're not going to bench enough targets for them to do it on. So yeah, I just like that the best. I think it's again it's very linear and straightforward. But I just think its numbers are just better, and like unlike Miraidon, like it can one shot like everything, which I think is really nice.
Yeah.
So that's why I like it the best.
My gripe with this deck, I think it's really, really strong. You're absolutely correct in saying Charizard and Drago are good matchups, right? Like you're the strongest into the top two decks, so to speak. So that's really attractive. My only issue with this deck is, again, this is super duper linear. The deck plays, I think, the most linear out of the three that we've covered. And I know a lot of people might argue Moon, but I actually think it's this one, just because you don't have a reliable one prize attacker. Like, okay, you Sandy Shocks. I don't know what you're doing with that. Have fun with your Sandy Shocks, bud. But like your Ogremons, obviously you can attack with them from time to time, but the deck does feel a lot of the time that you are very reliant on this whole like discard energy Sada combo, which you could argue the same thing for Generator, and you argue the same thing for Sada and Roaring Moon. But Roaring Moon has Dark Patch, and the Generators are searchable via Arvin, which I like. So you're very reliant on hitting these Sadas here, and I know you play 4 gears, but I'm not the hugest fan of this deck just because it feels like you need more combo pieces to kind of get it off. When you do get it off, your HP is so high that it makes you better than all the other decks. I agree with you there, 100%. 240 HP on a basic is absolutely absurd. So it's a tough number to hit. I think you also take a really good matchup into both. Well, not a really good matchup, but a slightly favorable matchup into both the other aggro decks, which is fun. You always take that where you can get it, right? So there's a lot of versatility with this deck. There's a lot of things you can do with it. You mentioned Charms. You mentioned Ultra Ball. Like there are some cards that can kind of come in and out. I noticed 3 shoes in here as well. You can go to 4. You do play an Iona, so you do have some sort of disruption going back the other way. So there are some things you can do with this. My only issue with it is it does feel really linear, and it does feel. I don't want to say infuriating. Infuriating is definitely not the right word, but it is frustrating sometimes when you lose and you just took like the linear line. There was legit nothing you could do differently, right?
But I mean, like that's part of playing these decks, right? You're just committing to I'm going to do my strategy more often. I'm going to put pressure on the other decks to go in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I just think, like I said, like I just think this one has the biggest upside. And I also like I don't know, I just find with this one as well, it's like you can normally like leave energies in play. Like it's pretty easy to attack back-to-back turns. The one thing I don't like is like sometimes I have to rely on catcher a lot for Gust. You can't search the prime catcher that easily. So like a lot of games, I'm like, all right, let's get a catcher heads here right now, especially on turn 1. I think Bundle's a card to really consider when you play this deck. As well, just give you a little extra Gust. It's honestly, at the end of the day, these decks are all
feels,
too.
I don't know, like in my experience, it feels like you're incredibly weak to Iona. Just because your attacks aren't really self-sufficient. Like with Moon and Miraidon, your energy stay on, but with this, it doesn't. So you're discarding these energies, and you're super susceptible to like a late game Iona to 2. And Sure, like a lot of the times, maybe you draw an energy, you're able to Greninja, you're able to Ogremon out of it, but there are a lot of times where you don't, and that whole thing, and just the fact that you have Fez as well, but a good player is probably going to counter catch or Iono you or whatever. Like your Fez is going to be gone. So
Yeah,
I don't know, man. This deck seems really strong overall. I just have a bit of issues with how linear it is and how luck based
I
it can
actually
feel.
think this deck does the best into Iono out of all of them. The reason being is,
Really?
yeah, because my reasoning, well, for this one specifically, it's like it's not very hard to thin your deck. Then almost all your cards at the end of the game are just more draw. Like any energy just turns into draw one, right? The other decks, if you draw an
Mhm.
energy, that's a brick. You play a bunch of retrievals. That's like again like draw cards because you have ninja. I mean, all the other ones also have ninja, but you play more energy recovery. You play vessel in this deck too. So it's like, okay, vessel just turns into draw. You can
Sure.
also pal pad at the end of the game. Like I normally just hold my pal pad with this deck, and then I'm like, all right, this is the turn where I'm probably gonna get disrupted. I'm like, all right, let's pal pad two Sadas. I don't. I just find this deck is like almost all consistency cards. Once I get to the late game, and anything that's not a consistency card is normally just like an energy type card. Where I'm like, all right, this is just even more dig. Um,
Yeah.
so I haven't found it
So
that hard to like keep going at the end of games with this deck.
I think my counterpoint to that is the fact that there's more that you need to attack as well though. Like you might draw out of it, like you might draw a Sada, whatever. You're hitting the lightning and you're hitting another lightning, but then you can't find the fighting, or you don't have enough energies on board to actually KO what's in front of you. And like the difference between this and the other decks is the other decks you can kind of set up your board so that you're sort of Iono proof, that you don't need to draw anything else. That's where my counterpoint lies. Like you set up two moons with three energies, you set up two Miraidons with three energies, you're effectively Iona proof. Maybe you're digging for a boss or whatever you need, but you can find that with Fez, you can find that with Greninja or whatever else you play. Whereas with this, you do need, I think, a few more things to kind of go your way at the end of the game. Although I do agree, like most of your cards are playable, so you'll probably find it anyways.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like this deck combo is crazy at the end. Like you get a Pokestop that's basically draw three at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Uh, And like it's like you do discard a lot of energies, but I find like normally like my penultimate attack, like I can normally leave enough in play. Cause like if you do Ogre Pawn the whole game, like and Sada every turn plus attach, you normally don't have to discard your whole board of energies. Like I normally find I can leave at least one for Bolt or something.
Hmm.
And then I can just go like attach boss even if I need to. So I don't know. Like in the other examples you gave, like you can also just get your Fez knocked out if you play Moon or something. I
You
was
could, but if you have all the energies on the board, you don't care anyways, though.
yeah, I agree with you. Like it's the one less piece you need, but I don't know. I haven't found it that hard to draw out of Iono. Like it's not good. Obviously, I don't want to get Iono at the end, but I haven't found it like
Yeah.
this is a disaster. Like
Well, I think with Fez, like nothing really matters anymore.
yeah, if you
Like,
have Fez on your board, and your opponent doesn't knock it out. You're just like okay, well like I'm not whiffing.
it's crazy how
Yeah,
good this card is. I think with all these decks, like the way you used to counter them in the past is literally just that, like Roxanne or Iono, and just like have fun, bud. Do not draw anything.
yeah.
But now with Fez, like that's probably what has catapulted these decks. Like, of course, the meta does matter, and like what you're playing against does matter, but it's also the fact that you can't just like brick these decks out anymore,
Yeah.
which used to be a really good strat.
I mean, you can, but it's just much harder.
Yeah, it's a lot harder. Even decks like Ancient Box are now playing Fez, and you're
I
just
play
sitting
Fez
there
in my
like,
ancient box. Like
sorry.
I play Fez in my ancient box because I would play too many
Mhm.
games where I'm like, okay, like I'm getting Iono to like 4 in the mid game, and I'm still like not being able to pull off my combos. Like, so
I don't know if Ancient Box should have been on this list of aggressive decks. I
I feel
guess,
like it's different. It's a one prize deck. It's not the same.
yeah.
But,
Yeah, it is. It does feel like the most combo reliant out of all of these, though.
yeah. Well, yeah. Its engine is the weakest probably out of all these decks, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, um, but it's slower because you play one prize, so you have more time to ramp. So yeah, I found with ancient box, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to 2 and my opponent's still at 3, which happens like most games, honestly, I'm like, okay, I can just bench Fez and then like go
Mhm.
from there. Because then if they knock out my Fez, then I'm like, okay, well, I got counter catcher again. If they don't knock it out, I'm like, well, I just draw more cards. So, um, yeah, I don't know.
Ancient Box
That's
does feel
pretty good.
really, really strong.
It does, but I think like we were seeing, like it just takes way too long, and it does have a lot of bricks, right? So if you brick one of the games, you're like, oh, it's probably a tie this round. So
It's
I think
interesting.
I
Yeah,
think ancient
I'm
box
curious to see
is
how this kind of all interacts at the end of this.
yeah, I think ancient box is probably like not gonna have like as strong a performance in Baltimore as we think, just
Mhm.
because I think it's gonna like suffer from a lot of ties and all that. But I'm still gonna think
Yeah,
like one will
the
probably
thing
make
is
top
though
eight.
with thing is with Ancient Box though is like you have the best matchup spread, like by
You
a
do
country
on paper, it's
mile.
the best deck. Yeah,
Like, it's not even close. So if anybody can withstand the idea of like, okay, maybe I might break out of a couple rounds, you can live with that. Like I could see Ancient Box going on a crazy run here. I agree with you. I don't think the number is going to be as high because like almost all the people I've talked to have been like, oh, I tried Ancient Box. Why does this deck not work? So it's like really unattractive to people, I think, on the surface. You play it a couple times, you're like, this deck is just a bunch of bricks, and you just don't want to play it anymore. So I agree with you. I think the number's going to be a bit lower, but I think overall, like the matchup spread is still insane.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
So, all right, let's wrap this up. So let's give a kind of TLDR here. So, maybe you can go first and kind of say. I know you touched on your top pick here a little bit. I think ours are different. So you go ahead first, and then I'll leave mine after.
So my TLDR about the aggro decks. Did we already basically say that?
Of like what your top aggro deck is.
Oh,
Like,
well, it's
what do
just
you
Raging
recommend
Bolt.
people play
I
out of
would
these
say
three?
Raging Bolt if you want to play one. Like, I think it's the best one.
Mhm.
One, because it's better into the other aggro decks, and two, just because it's the better one for Charizard, which is poised, I think, to see a lot of play this weekend.
Okay.
So for me, that's the one I would pick if I was going to play one of these aggressive decks.
Okay. I would pick Roy Mooney X. My reasoning being it's super consistent. I love the fact that you've different things you can kind of do with the deck. Obviously, you are a little bit susceptible when you put 200 on yourself, but playing the Bravery Charms does help with that a little bit.
Yeah.
I do understand that there's some matchups that are a little bit worse than with Raging Bull, but I think the consistency of the deck overall and just the ability to take prizes early is going to propel you to more wins overall, in my opinion. Like I've always been a big constituent of just playing something that does what it's supposed to do. This is why you saw Mew VMAX be good in formats where it was not supposed to be good. And that's just because even in the matchups that were bad, sometimes you just ran over your opponent because you were so consistent at just hitting 210 the second turn. So I think that's kind of the way I've always played these decks. My mentality is always just as long as you can KO something, you can get ahead, you can kind of cheap out some games, steal some wins here and there, and maybe the match spread doesn't matter overall. Miraidon, I don't think is terrible either. I know we've been kind of dumping on Miraidon a little bit, and that's not new to the
No,
Shift
I
Gear
think
podcast, to be honest.
I've always not liked
Yeah,
it.
you've always dumped on it. I've always pretended like I hated it, and really deep down, I think I do. But I think the deck's not bad. You do have obviously a little bit of consistency issues with your generators, but you have a very, very high ceiling. You have a lot of ability to catch up on some prizes with Iron Hands. You have a lot of ability to maybe cheese out some wins with Ursaluna. There's a lot of things going on. You also use Raikou V, which is a card I really, really like. That I don't think we touched on too much. Just the ability to have 4 Sealstone is
Yeah, that's
unreal.
huge compared to the other decks. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's an advantage you have immediately because you play Arven as well.
yeah. So I think just to finish off, what I want to talk about is like how I think the meta is going to adapt to like these aggro decks. So I think just from me looking online, like I think most Regidrago lists have adapted to playing Cleffa. And like Cleffa doesn't really seem like an aggro deck counter on the surface. But what I've found is like against a lot of these aggro decks with like Regidrago, like you want to put that one prize on the active, but then it's also like you need to have a very strong turn too, so you can keep tempo with these decks, or else you're gonna fall apart. And Cleffa just like allows you to like just build up your hand. If you're facing Roaring Moon, it makes it a lot easier to cure him turn 2, right? Like against Raging Bolt and against Miraidon, like it's much easier if you have to Guillotine them. So I think we're gonna see a lot of list shift to playing Cleffa and Regidrago specifically. And then like I don't know, like other decks, like it's kind of hard to specifically counter these besides just playing a deck like Charizard or playing like a deck like Gardevoir that's just naturally, or Ancient Box. Like I think part of the reason we're seeing Ancient Box get so much hype is because it's good into this style of deck. So I think we are going to see more decks that just naturally counter the aggro decks this weekend. But the thing is like even if you're trying to counter them, like your deck is just inherently more inconsistent. Like you can still just lose if you just get run over by these decks. So
All right, so let me give you a question here. This is a loaded
sure.
question. What is the play?
The play? I
What
have
is
no
the
idea,
play?
bro. I'd already have my deck picked if I knew. Like,
I think I know the play. It's just not a deck I'm gonna play.
yeah, what's the play?
I think the play is Charizard.
You think so?
I I think the play is absolutely Charizard. There's so many different things you can do with the deck. The problem is, and like my biggest issue with it is, you've so many moving parts. There's a lot of different things going on. Like Dusknoir is a huge addition to the deck, but there's a lot of different parts, and I think it takes a mental toll on you to keep track of all those things over a long tournament. And like, I kind of know what I like in a deck and what I don't like in a deck. And if that deck was a little bit more streamlined, I think I would play it absolutely. And it had a better ability to finish games on time. That would be my play. But I am gotten so close to like it's Tuesday right now. We're going to Baltimore soon. Like I don't think I have the time to really master it between now and then. And but otherwise, I'd be playing it 100%. I think
Yeah.
that's the play.
I mean, it's kind of funny, like how inconsistent Charizard's gotten now. Like we were playing the other
Yeah.
day, and I'm like, bro, like you literally need to draw Rod, Candies, or like because all the
Mhm.
energies you play 5 energies now, all that. So to
And you
me,
have to keep track of like exactly what your 6 prizes
yes,
are too. Like there's
exactly.
no cheating.
My only concern with Charizard is like I still just think it's bad into Regidrago, and I assume most of the best players are going to play Regidrago. So I'm like, I don't really want to have a bad matchup into like what all the best people are going to play.
But you beat legit everything else.
If you beat legit everything else, you have at least a shot against everything else. I think.
I think you beat almost everything. Like there's very few matchups in my brain where I'm like, okay, I lose.
Yeah.
Even to Drago, man, like you have lines. There's
No, you
ways to
have
do this.
lines, but it's unfavored, definitely. Like
It's definitely unfavored. Yeah,
yeah,
but you have ways to do it. And I think if a lot like if Drago had a high play rate again, I think I would like kind of shy away from this. But I don't see Regidrago having a crazy high play rate anymore.
yeah. I think we said like 15% or something when we did our meta forecast, which sounds about right. I think Regidrago is just like my fallback deck. I'm like, if I'm not sure what to play, like it's just solid. Like on
Even
paper,
that feels bad though.
yeah, on
Like the
paper
deck
it's
feels
bad,
bad.
but like, like what's it called? It's funny. I always love seeing Pokehive's like limitless aggregator. It's like Regidrago V Star, like one good matchup, everything else bad. But like,
I just mean like even the deck overall, just like playing the deck feels terrible sometimes.
because you get, I swear, the deck like majority of your games, you look at your opening hand, you're like, this sucks, and then like you just
Yeah.
like you like scrape out wins though somehow. So
And I think that's kind of like the reason why this video idea kind of came to my brain too. And I'm like, what should I be playing? And I thought it would be one of these three because like these just it feels like these just have the best chance to win the tournament.
do you
Like
know what?
if I were to pick anything to go crazy, it'd be one of these.
Do you know what has the highest win rate on these limitless tournaments? It's actually the
What?
deck that I've been playing a lot the past couple days.
What the hell have you been playing?
58% win rate, Aneil. In theory, this deck only,
58.
it only has 2 bad matchups according to this.
Snorlax?
No, Lugia.
Oh, really? Eh?
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing Lugia a lot lately because I'm like, well, like it looks like everyone's just cutting Temple from their deck. Like I don't see the Dragos playing it, and then it's like Charizard doesn't play Temple anymore. Honestly, if people play Gardevoir, I feel like they're not playing Temple anymore. There's like a lot of these matchups that like used to be like kind of sketch because people are teching for you. It's like those techs are kind of gone now, and it's like honestly, if you face Iron Thorns, like unlucky, like skill diff, like play a better deck.
Go
But
next. No one's playing Thorns. I wouldn't worry
that's what
about
I'm
it.
saying. Like, I don't think Thorn's gonna be that big, right? So it's like I don't know. I think Lugia is in a sneaky good spot where I'm like, this could be a really good play. It beats Ancient Box too, which is really nice. So yeah, I've been considering that. But the other thing that I thought was funny too was like they had the Gardevoir graphic. Apparently Gardevoir, like they put Regidrago's favored for Gardevoir on this graphic, and then it loses to everything else besides Miraidon, which I'm like, I feel like Miraidon's not that favored.
This is based off online Mickeys.
Online
right?
Mickeys, right? That's why I always like. It's so funny when I look at these results. Cause I'm like, I have like in my head where I think the matchup spreads are of all the decks, and I look at online Mickeys, and I'm like, okay, what are people doing when they're playing these games? Like, there's no way this is what the matchup spread is.
Well, like, dude, they're so misleading, man. You look at these results, you're like, what is this? Sometimes, and like guys who don't play a lot of Pokemon, like I'm sure you use this as kind of like a crutch for your own research, and I think it spreads so much misinformation sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's like a data point to use, but like you can't just use it as your only one. Like, bro, it says here Raging Bolt, or like Gardevoir's 37% into Raging Bolt. I'm like, there's no way.
Okay. Yeah, using this is actually a good point. Like using this is like using Wikipedia for like a school project.
Well, no, Wikipedia is actually good though, bro, because they moderate it like crazy. Like you can't just
Now it is. Before,
no,
it wasn't.
yeah, when we were kids, like
Yeah.
I don't know, like if anyone's our age or like older than us, they know this, but like you used to like go to class and like they would have a whole like 30-minute spiel on why like you can't use Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But I think nowadays,
Yeah,
from what
like-
I understand, like it's actually fine to use it because they put you just have to go to the bottom. So if you're in school right now, go to Wikipedia, and if your teacher says you can't source it, you go to the bottom, and it'll source in the Wikipedia article where they got it. Then use those as your sources.
Genius. Yeah, using Limitless is I don't know, it's hit or miss. Take it with a grain of salt, guys. I fall victim to this all the time where I'm like looking at Limitless, I'm like, bro, I don't have time to play all these matchups. Like, what are the matchup spreads? And I start to believe what I'm reading. And then I remember that not everyone online is built the same, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm looking at Drago here, right? It actually has a 50% win rate online. But it's slightly unfavored to all these decks. I'm like, okay, well, someone like Ian or like Bradner is playing Drago. Like, I'm pretty sure like the matchups just go up, right? So, I don't know. I think Drago's like the safest play if you consider yourself a pretty strong player. Otherwise, like I don't know, just play like Lugia or one of these aggro decks. That's what I would say.
That's fair. I'm putting myself through boot camp next couple of days, try and learn Charizard fast, see if I can do it. I just feel it's so strong. Snorlax is also really good too. I think we were
I've
talking about
been
that
saying that.
briefly.
I think Snorlax is in a very good spot.
Hmm.
Um,
Like
but
surprisingly.
yeah, I don't know if people will play it, but I think it's in a good spot.
Mhm.
So.
So
And
I
then,
mean,
if
we'll
you play
see.
Roaring Moon, you're very excited when your opponent flips over Snorlax.
True. Roaring Moon's pretty good. There's gonna be a lot of people kind of going into this. This is the first regional of the year. A lot of people who don't play regionals consistently are gonna be kind of going to this. Kind of the idea of making this video as well is give you guys 3 lists that you can kind of go off of. Maybe play one of these to the regionals. They are a little bit more linear, a little bit more forgiving if you're not used to playing the game a whole lot. So this is also a great reference point for those people. But mostly overall, I think we both can agree that these 3 decks are probably all good choices going into Baltimore this weekend. They have really high upside. You're going to cheat some games by just being aggressive. And that's kind of the idea why we made this video. We're both probably going to play decks that lose to these 3, so please don't play them. But we think overall they're quite strong.
Nice. Yeah, I agree.
Agreed?
Agreed. You know who's going to play one of these
Fantastic.
decks, Signal?
What's up?
You know who's playing one of these decks?
Who?
Shift Gear Superfan Charles DeBreton.
Shift Gear Superfan. That matters. Charles DeBreton, comment down below what you'll be playing. Comment your 60 if you're raw, but let us know what variant you'll be playing. If you don't comment your 60, I don't know, man. You might not be built different like we thought you were, but hey, it's neither here nor there. Charles DeBreton's actually in my car going down to Baltimore, and nobody knows who Charles DeBreton is. But if you can figure it
no
out,
leaking
I'll
the
give you
Gubby,
$5.
no leaking the Gubby.
If you're the first guy who figures out who Charles DeBreton is, I'll give you $5. I'll literally PayPal it to you. Good luck. You're not gonna figure it out.
Nice. All right. Other than that, Neil, we fixed our Shopify website. You can get Shift Gear hats again.
Yeah, Shift Gear merch is available. There's like 10 of you. I'm like hand delivering Shift Gear hats to in Baltimore. So this has kind of turned into a full-time job on top of my full-time job. So please continue buying hats. We really appreciate it. It supports the channel, and everybody who bought one, I hope you're wearing it in Baltimore. Like we'll probably be wearing ours.
We'll be wearing
we want
ours.
to see
Yeah.
We need to see a sea of Shift Gear hats, like legit. Like I'm looking up, and on my vision level, just Shift Gear, Shift Gear, Shift Gear. It'd be unreal. Someday we'll get there. And I tried to make an Ogremon t-shirt, and I did, and then we realized it's copyright and maybe a little bit racist. So
I axed that one so quickly.
Yeah, Ciaran's not happy about it. I still think it's good. I think we should release Ogremon t-shirts. Let us know down below. Is Ogremon racist? Let us know. I don't think it is,
definitely
but
was, bro.
nah, man, it's not racist. Anyways, yo, good luck in Baltimore. If you see us, come say hi. We always want to meet y'all. We'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and at the Ravens game on Sunday if Ciaran gets his damn ticket, which I don't know if he's going to because he's not serious.
I'm going to be hopefully winning the tournament, Neil. So hopefully I'm not at the Ravens game, but I might be at the Ravens game.
You can play day 2 and go to the Ravens game. That's what I'm planning on doing.
What time is the Ravens game at? 4:30?
1 p.m. Day 2 starts at 8:30. There's only 5 rounds now.
What if I'm winning the tournament?
Then you just skip the Ravens game. You're making enough money. Who cares anyway?
That is true. I can.
That's my thought process. I paid $240 Canadian for my ticket. I'm like, dude, if I'm winning the tournament, I don't care about $240 Canadian. Whatever.
That's very true. That's like internationals. Like I'll book my flights home on like Sunday. I'm like, well, if I'm in the finals, I do not care that I have to rebook this flight. So
exactly, it's all good. Anyways, y'all, thanks for being here. Let us know your comment. You're down below. Let us know what aggressive deck you like, why you should be playing it, or why we all should be playing it. Let us know what the play is as well. We want to know what you guys think the play is for Baltimore Regionals, because the format is like everywhere right now, and I don't think anybody has a grasp. So
yeah, let us
know what the play is. What's up?
Let me know the play is. DM me what the play is, guys.
Yeah, DM us what the play is. We don't know what the hell's going on. Come say hi in Baltimore. Looking forward to meeting y'all. Good luck. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Later.